Hello. So I am going to go ahead and show you guys a vinyasa, a short vinyasa for athletes, mainly focused around strengthening the core and opening up the hips. So we'll go ahead and get started. We'll be starting in easy pose, which is also just crossing your legs. So we'll go ahead and you can rest your hands on your knees, or you may bring your hands to heart center. You can bring your hands to the third eye, or even raise your hands up to the crown chakra. Wherever you are most comfortable is where I want you to sit. So we'll be sitting with our backs up, nice and straight, keeping our gaze in front of us, maybe even closing our eyes to calm down the breath. Focus on the breath and clear the mind before we get started with this vinyasa. So you want your chest to fully expand with each inhale, and you want to feel your belly drop and kind of sink back in as you take each exhale. So we'll go ahead and just focus on the breath here for a moment. Focus on nothing else except for the breath. We'll take one more breath here and then we'll get started. And as you take that last exhale, slowly open up your eyes. You can go ahead and bring your hands down to your knees. We'll go ahead and bring our feet into bound angle. So bound angle is also known as like the butterfly position. I know I did this in elementary school in PE, and this looks different on everybody. Sometimes to get the benefit of the stretch, you have to bring your knees all the way out and your feet a little bit farther than, say, someone else who's been doing this position every day. So if you can get your knees here, that's fine. Just make sure you bring your feet together and that you're feeling a stretch in the inner thigh. You want to keep your back nice and straight. And again, you can rest your hands on your knees or at heart center, or maybe even hold your feet together if that's something that serves your body, helps you get into the stretch a little bit more. So we'll take another 2 breaths here. You want your chest, your heart, your neck, all of that to be open. You want to roll your shoulders back to help open your heart just a little bit more. And again, you want to keep your breath at about the same pace. And sigh out each exhale. As you take your next exhale, we'll go ahead and slowly bring our feet out in front of us and wrap each foot down and bring them in to our hips. You want your heel to be about level with your hip. This is hero pose, and you want your legs to look like a really synced together, like W almost, upside down W in your eyes. You want your backs to be nice and straight, hearts open, shoulders rolled back. We'll sit here for about a breath or 2. Go ahead and tuck your toes, which might be a little difficult like this, but we'll tuck our toes, plant our hands on the ground, and then we will kind of push ourselves almost into a tabletop, bringing our hips up towards the sky, coming into downward facing dog. We'll go ahead and pedal out our feet, take our time with each leg to make sure we get the benefit of this stretch in the backs of our legs. And you want your arms to be an extension of your spine. So you want to kind of sink your hips into your thighs. Bring your belly closer to your thighs to help achieve keeping your spine nice and straight and your arms lengthened. You can keep a bend in your knees if this is something that makes you comfortable. We'll go ahead and sit here. And on an inhale, we'll go ahead and take our right foot, raise our right foot up towards the sky, and we'll slowly rotate our hip backwards behind us, dropping the foot to the floor and letting our right arm follow. This is Wild Thing. We'll go ahead and take 2 more breaths here. We'll go ahead and drop our hand back down to the floor, rotate our foot however we may need to do that, and slowly bring our right foot back down into downward facing dog. Bringing ourselves back into the pose, sinking our cores into our thighs as much as we can to really make sure we stretch out our shoulders. We'll go ahead and adjust as needed. I'm a little close to the wall, so I'm moving outwards a little bit. We'll go ahead and raise our left foot up towards the sky on an inhale, and exhale, rotate behind us. Bringing our left arm back, letting that follow. Breathing here. Keeping a bend in our right knee. Almost like we're in wheel pose. Our hand just doesn't quite meet the ground though. And as we take our next inhale, we'll go ahead and plant our hand back down into the ground, raising the left foot up. Dropping back down into downward facing dog. Again, you can pedal out your feet. And take a breath here. For the next asana, I like to kind of roll myself into this pose from downward facing dog. So I kind of lift my toes and push myself forward, walking my hands, adjusting as needed. We're going to be coming into a plank, and we'll be doing a plank hold. So we'll hold this pose for about 10 seconds. Keeping our focus on the breath here. Keeping our cores engaged and our backs nice and straight. From plank, we're gonna do what's called a chaturanga. So we'll push our bodies forward, slowly dropping our elbows like we're about to do a push-up, and then finding ourselves in upward facing dog. So in upward facing dog, you can either have your toes tucked or soles up, resting on the ground. You want to get a nice little stretch in your lower back, but you also do not want your thighs to be touching the ground. So however your feet rest, whatever is most comfortable for you, that allows your thighs to not rest on the ground, that works for me. We'll go ahead and drop our knees and bring our bodies into tabletop. If you want to take a moment to kind of roll out your wrists, we put a lot of pressure on those, so we definitely don't want to ignore keeping our wrists nice and stretched out, nice and happy. We'll go ahead and anchor our hands into the ground. Go ahead and spread your fingers out nice and wide. Keep your toes tucked. We'll go ahead and raise our knees up a couple inches off the ground, and you want your hands under your shoulders. We're just going to sit here for about 10 seconds. This is a tabletop knee lift, and this kind of targets the core, the abdominal muscles. And again, focus on your breath. Go ahead and drop your knees down to the ground. If you want to come into child's pose for a moment, roll out your wrists and let your shoulders rest. You may do so. We'll go ahead and push ourselves back up and wrap our feet around, finding ourselves with our knees kind of in an upside down V position. Next, we'll be coming into a half boat pose. So half boat pose is where you rest. You want your body in about a V position. You want your legs to be your lower legs to be as straight as you can get them. You can either tuck your toes or not tuck your toes, but flex your toes. So bring them back so that you feel a little bit of a tension in your shins, or you can point your toes out. That'll give you a little stretch in your shins, whichever's most comfortable for you. We'll go ahead and raise our hands, and this is a half boat pose. We'll rest here for about 2 breaths. And then we will go ahead and do some heel taps. Do about 5 on each side. Once you reach 5, go ahead and drop your feet back down to the floor. You can kind of wiggle out your back, whatever makes you feel comfortable. Next, we'll go ahead and drop our feet, coming into Dandasana, or staff pose. You want your legs to be nice and straight, or as straight as you can get them. You can have a little bend in your knees. You want your backs to be straight. And you can rest your hands on the ground for just a moment. Find your breath. And we'll go ahead and take a seated forward fold. Reaching down to our feet, you can rest your hands next to your thighs. If you need to bend your knees a little bit more to accomplish the forward fold, by all means. And we'll go ahead and slowly roll ourselves up back into staff pose. So next we're going to be coming into Marchesima or Sage Marichi. This is a really good hip opener. And what you do is we're going to start with our left foot. So we'll bring our left foot up, bring it as close to the sit bone and the hip as we can get it to go. If you're just starting out and this is all you can do, or this is all you can do, that's fine. Just work your way up nice and slow. So, Sage Marichi, our hip and our feet are right next to each other. We're gonna go ahead and take our left arm and wrap it back and around the left leg. Take our right arm and wrap it back behind our backs. This will help improve our posture as well as open our hip. If for whatever reason you can't bring your hands together, you can always use like a resistance band if you have one, or if you have a strap, you can use that as well. So go ahead and grab on and kind of hold on tight, and that'll help you accomplish the pose as well. And you want your right foot to be extended and flexed. And we'll hold this here for another 2 breaths or so. And as you exhale, you can slowly let your leg extend out, coming back into Tadasana. Go ahead and wiggle out your legs. And we'll go ahead and repeat on the right side. So bring your right foot up as close to the sit bones or hips as you can get them to go. Take your right arm, wrap it around the back of your left leg or your right leg, and meet your right hand with your left. And if you cannot do that, you can rest your hand on the ground behind your back, or use a resistance band, a rope, a strap, whatever you have available to you to help you accomplish the pose. Again, flexing the toes of our left foot. Breathing in and out. Inhaling through the nose. exhaling through the mouth, sighing it out. On that last exhale, go ahead and slowly lengthen, coming back into Dandasana or staff pose. You can give yourself a little bit of a forward fold. And roll yourself up. We're going to be coming into lotus pose. Lotus pose is a little bit difficult if you're a beginner, but you can always start out by just resting your foot on top of your thigh. You can have your right foot out and your left foot in. You can switch halfway through, or you can sit kind of like in a pretzel almost. Have your left foot under your right leg and your right foot up on top of your thigh. The full lotus pose, you want both of your feet on top of your thighs, as close to the hip pelvic bone as possible. So we'll go ahead and we'll roll our shoulders back. Take a nice little deep breath to calm the heart rate after doing this vinyasa. You can go ahead and bring your hands together, either pressed into each other and create that energy there. You can bring your hands into Lotus Mudra, wherever you're most comfortable. And at the end of each practice, I like to take some time to kind of almost meditate, bring the center back to the breath, clear the mind after doing this vinyasa. And I always like to thank myself and thank the class for showing up, for doing this for yourself. Yoga is honestly one of the best things that you can do for your mind and for your body. So go ahead and thank yourself. If your hands aren't already at heart center, bring them to heart center. Know that the light in me honors that same light within each of you. We'll go ahead and seal our practice and bow our heads in Namaste.